Whoa, 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 whoa.
What's the problem?
This
What's the matter?
This is not a Jet show.
So what?
So how about this?
Manning lobs it. Boris alone. Touchdown, New York.
Oh, come on. I don't want to hear this.
Why not? Super Bowl champions.
Doesn't matter. I just don't want to hear it.
What do you want to hear?
How about some Mets?
Hey, if I can find one good thing that happened to the Mets, here we go.
Home run. Mike Piazza. And the Mets lead 3-2.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be, I'm sorry. We all can't be like the Yankees.
Oh, speaking of.
This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly.
No. God, I can't believe I just said that. All right, well, listen. How about a little Nets?
If I have to.
Hit the jumper to win it.
I know, right? It's
I
like
can't take
crystal
it. I
clear.
can't take it anymore. It's been a second. I can't take it. How about some Knicks?
Oh, yeah. Big spenders. Can't win a playoff.
Fair enough.
Houston pops out up top, down the lane, running jumper off the front rim, and in.
I guess we should talk a little hockey, no?
People even watch hockey anymore?
They watch the Rangers.
Well, if you have the Rangers, you gotta have some Islanders.
Yeah, no, they didn't have a YouTube in the 80s.
All right, let's get the show started.
Here we are, polar opposites.
Hello and welcome to the Polar Opposites podcast. We are live right now on Strong Island TV and radio. So you can go to Facebook if you're probably already there. We also can hear us on Spreaker. You can hear us on TuneIn. You can hear us on polaropposites.podbean.com and follow us on Twitter at polaropposites1. I'm Matt Stevens. Alongside me, as always,
Is Craig Moffat.
and Craig.
Matty, how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good. This is our initial show on Strong Island TV. We want to thank them so much for having us. It's a great place. We're really excited to be doing this live.
We are out of the cramped confines of your
Hey,
apartment.
Hey,
I mean,
I live in a Midtown Manhattan
we
apartment.
now have
It's small.
we have a budget.
We do.
I mean, that's huge.
Well, it's a budget.
the charge
anyway.
went through. That's the important thing. All right.
So we're going to be doing this twice a week, and then the other 2 times we'll be doing it on Spreaker and, of course, our normal podcasting outlets where you can hear us all. Plus, you can download us on iTunes. We are freaking everywhere. We are going to start tonight. We got a lot to do. We're going to do NFL. We're going to do NFL Week 9. We're going to do just a little bit baseball. There's some postseason awards. The finalists for the awards came out last night. We got some sad news out of baseball. We're going to do a tiny bit of NBA on the Knicks. And then we're going to end. Now, if you know our show from the podcast, we usually do closing time to end the show. Today, we're going to do sort of an amalgam, do polar, bipolar to end the show. So 10 minutes, 10 questions, boom, quick hit.
Week 9.
Oh,
Again, we go through this time. We've talked about this on our podcast a few times. Obviously, it's the first time people are watching us
Yes.
right now on Strong Island TV.
you also know why we usually do just podcasts.
And just to give you a little background of who we are, the Polar Opposites, basically Matt and I like the opposite of each other's teams. So Matty, for an example, is a Yankees, Knicks, and
Giants
fan. See it already.
Giants. Also,
And-
Arsenal. If you want to talk,
Don't start with soccer.
No, listen, if you want to talk soccer, 516-945-9090. You can call in right now.
Yeah.
Talk to us about whatever you want. Sorry, Craig, keep going.
That's okay. And as
Yankees,
for me,
Giants, Knicks.
And I am a Jets, Mets, and Nets fan, and I like the Islanders. I'm a Long Island guy from Great Neck and Limbrook. Matty doesn't really follow hockey.
Yeah, unless it's the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point, right? The season's way too long.
And then he just rips me whenever I jinx the Rangers.
Which he does. We have opens to prove it.
All right, let's kick it off with Week 9. And again, this season has just been really strange. And just when you think like some teams have turned the corner, all of a sudden they hit a wall. And I'm talking about, for example, like the Seahawks last week. Great game against the Texans. Russell Wilson lit them up. And then they just have this game against the Redskins at home, and they just were terrible.
It was 10-2 in like the.
I know, it was like a baseball
game.
score. It's like between the Mariners and the Nationals.
You have 3 teams right now that are riding high, right?
Sure.
You have the Eagles.
Yep.
You got the Rams.
Yeah.
And probably the Saints, I guess.
Well, Saints have won 6 in a row.
Right.
I mean,
So they're flying high right now. But here's the thing. It's the NFL. So if next week Carson Wentz gets hurt, well, that's the Eagles, right? I mean, look at Green Bay. And I will say this, and then we'll get back to the other stuff is Mike McCarthy might be the most overrated coach in maybe the history of the NFL, right? So, like, it's like the idea that anybody could have won with the 90s Yankees, right? Joe Torre happened to be that guy. But, like, if you put me in there, like, am I going to screw it up? Probably not. Well, I guess that could be said for Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers. They've had this kid behind him for 3 years. 3 years. And I mean,
still looks like a rookie.
It is the most elementary offense in the world, and then with the complexity of the NFL defenses, you run that type of offense, you're going to get beat, and they got beat.
Yeah, I mean the Lions.
The Lions won. That was the second time they won in like 30 years.
The Lions play well, and I mean the Lions are that team. Like Stafford's been. They've been trying to they're the team that doesn't really have much of a running game with Abdullah, even though Amir Abdullah had like a pretty decent game last night.
Have they had a 1,000-yard rusher since Barry Sanders retired?
I don't know,
maybe
man.
one?
I want to say
Maybe
James
one?
Stewart, maybe when they had James Stewart when he was post Jacksonville.
But you can't think of more than that.
The thing is, it's just a revolving door of backs on that team. And I mean, if you have Riddick and you have Abdullah, then you had that I forgot that Zane Zeller. Right. He was kind of like a Keith Elias type of back.
Yep.
And I mean, but after that, it just, like I said, it just keeps going like revolving door. And then they've kind of focused more on wide receivers when they had Megatron. Now they have Golden Tate. They have Marvin Jones. You know, even back in the days when it was Herman Moore and Brett Perriman and those guys. You know, I mean
Moore
that
was great.
the
Terrible
Lions.
on the Giants. But
Yeah,
great.
the Lions are very big. And the thing is, like another guy who's really been bad for them is Ebron. Ebron's been a huge bust, I think, for them.
And people killed the Giants.
Well, he went before the
No, I
Giants.
know. People wanted him to trade up.
Yeah. And I mean,
insane.
And I mean, the thing was when they drafted Ebron that year, because they still had a pretty decent tight end in Pettigrew.
Yep.
And the thing was that you thought it was Matt Millen running the draft again because of all the wide receivers he used to draft back in the day. So, you know, you see things like that, and you see a guy like Hundley who, you know, you think by now learning under Rodgers, I mean, you've been in the offense for a couple of years and stuff, and it just looks, again, there's no like fluidity to it. There's just nothing whatsoever. You know, and the Lions have had a pretty solid game in Lambeau, and I think it's just going to be the nature of the beast moving forward because you saw it in Houston with Deshaun Watson with that terrible injury during practice, you know, a non-contact injury, tears his ACL.
Well, so I'm watching, because I want to talk about that for a second, because not from any sort of doctor standpoint, because I'm not a doctor, I've never even played one on television, but I'm watching ESPN this week, and I think it was Adam Schefter. I feel like it was Adam Schefter. Anytime I see NFL news, I just assume it's Adam Schefter. So let's just assume it's him.
Well, I like to think ESPN stakes their claim first, even though somebody else reported it 6 hours
Oh,
before.
of course. Yeah, that's their ride. That's how they roll. But talking about how in the game he took a hit to the knee, and he didn't come out. He didn't miss time. It wasn't like an injury or anything. But that sort of like was the
precursor.
Yeah, like, and then he like steps wrong, and then the whatever happened inside there that he didn't necessarily feel on Sunday snaps. Now listen, nobody knows if that's true or not. It's crazy, but but it just goes to show you that in the NFL, unlike when we started watching the NFL in the '80s, where when you didn't have salary caps, right, and you could have good backups on your team. You could have a guy like Jeff Hostetler take you to the Super Bowl.
Sure.
That's not happening today. It's just not. The backups just aren't good enough.
Yeah, and the problem is that teams are not emphasizing it anymore because when you have an Aaron Rodgers, you have a Tom Brady, you have even a Deshaun Watson, you think they're never going to get hurt.
But you also
and you're
can't
not
afford
prepped for
to do
it.
it. You can't afford to do it. You can't. If you're going to pay a quarterback $23 million, like what is Kirk Cousins going to get from the Jets in the offseason?
Oh, is it the Jets now?
Yeah, he's totally going to the Jets.
See, I made that proclamation like a couple of weeks ago because when the Jets were playing well, and then it was the whole point of Sam Darnold not playing that well, Josh Rosen not playing that well, and the other guy's not really worthy of like a lottery pick for quarterbacks.
Right.
So then I said that the Jets should just, if they finish the season 8-8, and this is hypothetical at this point because they could win Sunday and then lose out the rest of the year.
Okay.
So from that point on, what do you do moving forward? You're not going to be put in a position to draft a quarterback at 15, 16 unless those guys really do fall to you. So at that point, you have to start looking at guys like Kirk Cousins. Now, obviously, one guy who's off the table is Jimmy Garoppolo, who's traded to San Francisco at the deadline.
But that helps the Jets and the Kirk
Of
Cousins
course,
thing.
yeah.
Now, we'll get to the Jets and the Kirk Cousins thing in a second because I want to just go through real quick. We're not going to break any games down because it was just – but there was just – like you can just see now in the NFL that week to week it's starting to sort of mold into – like we had a couple weeks there that were just crazy haphazard and nuts where you just didn't know who was going to win. And you're starting to see the teams now that are pulling ahead of the pack. The Giants are clearly at the bottom of that. The 49ers are clearly at the bottom of that. I'm actually starting to put the Broncos at the bottom of that.
I'll give you another one. I'll give you the Falcons.
Oh, I mean,
the Falcons are a team to me, like I'm waiting for them to just kind of explode. And I'm waiting for Julio Jones to have like that 3-touchdown, 150-yard game, and he's not having it.
No.
And the thing is, that team is healthy. It's not like they're injured. I mean, they have.
And I swear to God, if I hear one more time, oh, it's just them trying to get adjusted to the offensive coordinator. Guys, it's week 9. It's week 9.
It's the same offense. Sarkisian is basically running the same offense that Kyle Shanahan's running.
And listen, like if you don't know how we feel about Kyle Shanahan, let us take a second to tell you how we feel about Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan is the most overrated offensive coordinator.
Overrated is a term that's used a lot on the show, but we really emphasize overrated for Kyle Shanahan.
That's why I said overrated.
He single-handedly cost them the Super Bowl.
Run the ball.
Run the ball. Single-handedly.
Run the ball. It's not hard. So when you think of, like, could it really be as simple as Steve Sarkisian's rhythm and play calling? Is that fakakta for Matt Ryan that they can't get it? Like, I cannot believe that this is like
the team is
insane.
The thing is, the team is too talented. Like I said, they don't have really any injuries whatsoever. They just got Mohamed Sanu back a couple of weeks ago. So you have Sanu, you have Taylor Gabriel, who's disappeared unless he's hurt, and I don't even think he is, but he's really been non-existent. Then you have, of course, Julio Jones. Even the tight end, Austin Hooper's been pretty decent. Your line is intact.
Right.
And outside of maybe some injuries on defense, I know Beasley's been hurt on and off this year. Your secondary's still pretty good. And then on top of that, you still have Matt Ryan. And you have Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. So my question is, what's the problem in Atlanta that they just can't get it going?
I think we have a call here. You're on with Polar Opposites with Matt and Craig. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Okay, that was some other sound that I'm not aware of yet, but I'm learning as we go. Okay, so we see the NFL is rounding out, right? It's just it's coming together. You have your teams that are really good, the teams that are really bad, and then you have we always have an amalgam of teams in the middle that just sort of play spoiler at the end of the year. Let's get to the Jets real quick. We're not going to talk about the Giants because I'm not. Can I just say one thing about the Giants real quick? Because over the last 2 days, I've listened to a couple different talk radio shows, and I keep hearing the thing that the Giants quit. That's the big question everyone's asking. Have the Giants quit? And the answer is, of course they have. Of course they have. Because let me say this. The Giants' defense is too good to give up 51 points against anybody. Let's be fair. If the Giants defense plays the way it should, they're too good to give up 51 points against everybody. And I'm talking about without Olivier Vernon and without Janoris Jenkins, okay? They just shouldn't give up 51 points, especially not to a guy who last year, at the end of last year, people were talking about Jared Goff being like a Ryan Leaf bust.
And that was what was even crazy because it was only 1 year.
Yeah.
And it was so, like, I remember when Richard Sherman came out before the year, this was all the Kaepernick stuff, and he was destroying teams that had quarterbacks that he felt weren't better than Colin Kaepernick. Goff. And he specifically said Goff. And he specifically said guys like Bortles and to a lesser extent McCown. But I'm saying that it was so unfair to write Goff off after 1 year.
Right.
Because first of all, you had Jeff Fisher running that team, and you know how much of a disaster that team was with Jeff Fisher running it, to the point where Todd Gurley couldn't get going. None of their offense was just, it looked like it was stuck, in the 90s or something. And the thing is, under McVay,
right,
they're just a different, they're buying in. And that's all it takes sometimes. All it takes is just a coach to come in and the players buy in. And Goff has been much, much better. He's been much improved. Not even talk about the game against the Giants with the 4 touchdowns, but just overall in the season. Yeah, he's had a couple of hiccups, bad games, here and there. But overall, he's shown drastic improvement from last year.
Well, and if you hear Steve Young, the way he talks about it is, you have to, wanting to hit somebody is not a natural thing. Wanting to run into somebody full speed, so you have to have a reason to want to do it. So we're not going to talk about the Giants because if the Giants aren't going to show up, we're not going to show up for them. Now, on to the Jets. The Jets right now are playing very good football. They dominated that game on Thursday.
Yeah.
You can look at the score, and if you didn't watch the game, you would have no idea what happened because those last 2 touchdowns were garbage touchdowns. They should have won that game by at least 3.
Yep.
Not 3 points, 3 touchdowns. And they're playing excellent football. Here's what I'm going to say. What worries me, and then I'm going to let you
go
have your moment on the Jets here.
Thanks.
What worries me is this: is the Jets end up going this year 8-8, which will be 7 more wins than most people thought they would get. Right?
Sure.
Most people 1-15, 2 whatever, the whole thing. So if they end, 8-8, 7-9, 9-7, don't make the playoffs, don't get a high draft pick. I don't see how it changes. I don't see how they don't live in that area. Even if they bring in a guy like Kirk Cousins, because that's going to jack up their cap. They got other guys.
Well,
and it just worries me that playing over their head at this time is going to affect them for the next couple years going forward.
I can totally understand that because, listen, we had talked about it previous times on our podcast, and the one thing I had said was, as long as they're competitive, I'm okay with it. You know, like if they lose and they're competitive, I didn't want to see them get blown out 31-3 every week against whichever team.
Right.
The fact is they're playing better than a lot of people anticipated. Not better than how I anticipated them, because while most people wrote them off as an 0-16 team, okay, I was the kind of guy that was basically saying if I can get 5 or 6 wins out of this team, I'm fine with that. And I thought they were good enough.
Right.
And what you're seeing is that you're seeing these guys realize their potential a little bit. And I'm not just talking about Jamal Adams and Marcus May because, you know, right now I didn't like Marcus May, the draft pick, when they made it because I just really wanted Dalvin Cook that pick. I just thought it would have been a sweet draft pick. But listen, Marcus May has definitely been better than I anticipated, and so has Jamal Adams. But guys like Darren Lee, you know, Darren Lee got ripped last year because he didn't have a good rookie year. This year, you know, you're seeing him in the backfield a lot, hitting the running back. You're seeing him get pressure on the quarterback. You know, maybe he's better suited for the outside. I don't know. His speed might be better suited to go outside and be kind of like when the Jets had Aaron Maben and all they did was just send him in on blitzes the whole time and he was sacking the quarterback. Maybe that's what Darren Lee is. Jordan Jenkins is another guy. Solid player, solid all-around player. Again, starting to realize their potential. They're not there yet. But then you got other guys. You see McCown working a nice rapport with Robbie Anderson. Mm-hmm. You know, Robbie Anderson had a 100-yard game on a Thursday, and then, you know, he played pretty solid the week before when they played the Dolphins or the Falcons. You're just seeing little things here and there. Safarian Jenkins having a good year. The only thing right now I really think they need to work on is they really need to rebuild that offensive line. And I think that's probably, besides quarterback, because I don't know what the future holds next year for quarterback for them. I don't know. I am pretty sure it's not going to be Josh McCown.
We know that next year the Jet quarterback will not be one of the two guys behind McCown.
No, I think
the ship has sailed on those two, right? I mean, if they're not playing, like the ship has sailed.
Look, the fact that Hackenberg is inactive every week is telling me that they know that he's not good.
Yeah, it's
okay?
bad.
I mean, that's telling something, right?
Tough,
I mean, because you tried to give him as many reps as you could in training camp, and he was bad.
He was bad.
He was bad. And the thing is that now you're hoping towards the end of the year the team will be bad enough where you could play them. But I think at that point he's a lost cause.
Well, let's be fair. They probably win this week, right?
I think they have a good shot now because, one, Winston's not playing and Fitzpatrick is in, but also Evans is suspended.
The only thing you worry about is Ryan Fitzpatrick having, like, you know, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he can have one of those games, right, where he beats you. But
here's where they could get killed, and that's on the running game because the Jets are not good at stopping the run. I know they were good last week against McCoy, but most of the season they've been pretty bad.
Yeah.
Okay, even with Wilkerson, McClendon, and Leonard Williams on that D-line, they've still been bad. They've been getting shredded.
Well, the Jets are good against a run game like the Bills that does a lot of cutbacks and is based on speed and agility because the Jet defense is pretty fast and pretty agile. It's the power game that destroys them. So if you're running downhill against the Jets, you're going to get some yards.
And one guy I could definitely see having a good game against the Jets on Sunday is O.J. Howard because I don't think the Jets are that great at covering the tight end.
Plus, I mean, you can use Darren Lee. O.J. Howard's like a foot tall.
Exactly. And the one thing Darren Lee is not great at is coverage. So it's a good win.
But they go 5-5 into the bye week.
I mean, that's
you're going to be playing. You're going to be playing in the play. You're going to not in the playoffs.
I mean, the rest of the season is going to be
playoff.
Listen, the rest of the season they still have Kansas City, they still have Carolina, they have New Orleans in New Orleans, they have the Patriots.
I'm bringing it up right now.
You know, they have a lot of tough games to round out the season. Are they winnable?
But
sure.
People thought the Patriot game, they were in that game, right? The Falcons game, they were in that game, even though they lost. They beat the Bills once, and the Bills, when they beat the Bills were the team, right? That was the sexy team of the week was the Bills. So they got the Bucks, and they got the bye, then they got home Panthers, home Chiefs, at Broncos, at Saints, home Chargers, at Patriots. I mean, that's not, look, Broncos, that game in the beginning of the year thought was a brutal game. That's not a brutal game anymore. The Panthers isn't even a brutal game. The Chiefs offense looks inept the past couple weeks. I mean, the Dallas defense beat down the Chief offense.
The thing about the Panthers is that they're such a hot and cold team. It's like you get good Cam one week, then you get bad Cam.
Right, so you hope you get good Cam the week before, and then you get bad Cam.
Now that you don't have Kelvin Benjamin, who was traded to Buffalo, you're working with basically Devin Funchess and kind of an unknown So it's going to be a lot more emphasis, I think, on Christian McCaffrey at this point in the season.
I enjoy the name Funchess.
So
sounds like a chip of some sort, doesn't it?
So look, it's fun that the Jets are playing well. Listen, I love watching wins. I don't want to watch losses as a Jets fan. No fan wants to watch a team lose as many games as like if you're a Cleveland Browns fan or whatever.
I don't know. I'm starting to think Cleveland Brown fans like the losses.
I think they're used to it. I don't think they know how they would react if they won 2 in a row, let alone one game.
It took Cub fans less than a year to become D-bags after winning their first championship in 108 years, so I imagine it wouldn't take Brown fans too long.
But basically moving forward, I mean, Matt's right to an extent. 8-8, although I don't even like being 8-8 because it's just it's what they've always been. They've always been that 8-8.
But if you were 8-8 in the natural progression of building and going into what we've seen in the years past, right, where the Jets were 4-12 last year.
Yeah.
Right. So 4-12 last year, and then this year they go to 6-10, 7-9.
Right.
Then next year it's 9-7, 10-6, and then the natural progression. The thing you worry about the Jets is their team good enough next year to play a second place schedule, which is what they will probably end up playing if they continue down this path. And will that then stunt their growth? Like what happened with the Giants this year? They went with 11-5 last year in playing a third place schedule. They get bumped up to the second place schedule and they get demolished. And
the thing is, I think in 2018, I think that the Jets would play the Packers, they play the Lions, they play the North. I don't remember who they play in the AFC. I can't remember right off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
But pretty much, you're going to have a tough schedule either way. Not to mention, Buffalo will try to find ways to improve because they're going to have multiple first-round picks next year, and they're going to probably have some cap space to make some moves.
You can get rid of the quarterback, Buffalo, if you want.
And the thing is, we don't know what the Dolphins are going to be. But either those 3 teams always give the Jets fits. You know that. It doesn't matter how.
But division games, even the Browns give. The Browns almost beat the Steelers earlier in the season. I mean, it's division games. It's always like that.
Now at this point, listen, I'm happy they won the game on Thursday. Let's hope they go into Tampa and get another victory. After that, though, 8-8. I don't love it. I mean, I'll take it. I'm not saying I won't take it, but I won't love it because then I just feel like we're right back to where we started, where we're just kind of like that team in the middle. Kind of like lost in the shuffle. Other stuff real quickly for the NFL. Let's quickly segue into the Ezekiel Elliott stuff because this is just something that won't go away.
Well, I don't understand.
It's just like.
But can somebody I would really love, and we don't have a legal expert on this show yet, so once we do, I will ask this question. I promise it will be the first question I ask. How can a judge look at a collective bargaining agreement that was signed between, not like me and Craig, like it wasn't 2 random people in the world. This was a thing that was negotiated in front of the whole world. How are they allowed to then say, Roger Goodell could give out all the punishment he wants, but every time he does, we're just going to fight it in court? Like, what the hell's the point?
But the
What's
problem
the point
is,
of the paper?
They're making decisions literally 24 hours after the suspension goes right back into play.
And but again,
it's sending a terrible message.
Right, but that again, and also the other thing too is how are these guys getting court dates so fast? Like that's the other thing that kills you, right? People wait for court dates forever. How are these guys getting court dates that fast? We know how it is. It's money. It's always money. But the thing I will never understand is if you're the Players Association at this point, and if you're the NFL, that collective bargain agreement, just wipe your butt with it. It's literally worth nothing. If every time somebody gets suspended, you can go to the court. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
How is it worth the paper it's written on?
But at this point, for Dallas, you probably were better off just having Elliott take the 6 games at the beginning of the year.
Unless it's his first 6 games of next year. Unless it's just this year he plays.
And I mean, now there's talk. Now there was I read an article the other day about they were talking about a possible settlement on the case, which would mean lesser than what Goodell.
No, if the NFL,
and they don't
if you
want
settle
that.
at this
The NFL's not going to do it, and I don't even think the Players Association wants it, but I don't really know. But I'm saying that at this point, it's just like this is becoming comical, where pretty much a judge will rule for the NFL, and then 2 days later, another judge just rules for Elliott.
The New York judge rules for the NFL, and the Texas judge rules for the Cowboys. I mean, that's the way it's been going. The other thing that makes me laugh about this whole thing, and then we're going to get to Teddy, which is a great story. Glad to see him back. Is the owners that were like Roger Goodell's best buddies, right? Now he's gone after 2 of their star players, and they hate him. They hate him now. Jerry Jones is trying to hold up him getting re-signed, all because he wants to suspend Zeke for doing something. that, yeah, he didn't get charged for it, but you know what? Aroldis Chapman didn't get charged either, and that guy sat out 30 games in Major League Baseball. So I don't understand why we have collective bargaining agreements if they have no value, if they have no oomph, if they have no if they have no shoulders to stand on. Like, what's the point of it? What's the point? It makes no sense. Now on to a good story. Teddy Bridgewater has been activated.
Yes, and the thing was, when that injury first took place,
We were actually on the air when it happened live.
and it was a lot, and it was just very similar to the Deshaun Watson thing. It was a non-contact injury. He just kind of planted his knee. He planted his foot wrong, and his knee just went.
But they were talking about like having to save. Like the trainer saved his leg. I mean, this was a brutal dislocated kneecap. It was brutal. That happened on August 30th of last year, and he's now just getting activated on the team. He's not going to start. They don't even know if he's going to play, but they think he's ready for backup because they might actually put Sam Bradford on IR, which shocks absolutely nobody who watches the NFL.
No, it doesn't, because Sam Bradford is the epitome of stealing money. Like,
his first contract.
Like, to this
he signed that with a mask on.
Like,
he
to this
signed
day,
that with
he
a
was
mask of Ronald
stealing
Reagan
money.
on.
And then, of course, he goes to the Eagles, and he gets traded to the Vikings.
Oh, for a first round pick.
I know, and the Vikings. I mean, listen, Sam Bradford is what he is. He is a marginally good quarterback at this stage in his career. He will, he can throw the football. No one's saying he can't, but he's just not a guy that's going to lead you to a Super Bowl.
No,
he's not. He's a backup at best in this league at this point, and he just keeps getting hurt.
He does.
On to other things.
Yeah.
So Teddy Bridgewater's activated. I don't know if he's going to be. Obviously, he's not going to play. He's going to back up Keenum for now, and then depending on where the season goes, hopefully. I mean, I'd love to see him try to get in a game before the end of the year, but that's only if the Vikings are maybe on the outside looking in,
if there's a blowout. They'll give him some time.
Or
they want to check it out in practice first. They want him to get hit a couple times, I would imagine, and make sure that.
Or at some point, if Keenum is just not producing, but right now he's actually playing pretty decent, so they give him an early break on that.
That division, I mean, it's now. Oddly, it's between the Lions and the Vikings, but there you go. That's what happens with injuries.
One other quick note, the NFL trade deadline was last week, and the only reason why we're going to bring it up, because normally nothing ever happens at the trade deadline.
They traded some people.
This was the busiest I'd ever seen the trade deadline, and I mean deals right before 4 o'clock, and then one that got voided because the Browns didn't send the email in time at 4:02. So you have Jay Ajayi going to the Eagles from the Dolphins for basically a 4th-round pick, which my Dolphin fan friends were furious about in some ways. You have Garoppolo going to San Francisco. So here's my question to you.
Yes.
After all was said and done at the end with Jimmy Garoppolo, Patriots weren't going to trade him unless they got a 1st and a 3rd or something like that.
Okay.
Do you think the Patriots got enough for Garoppolo?
Absolutely, I think they got enough because it's the 49ers. So it could be the first pick of the 2nd round, which is you expect that guy to start right away. And if you're the Patriots, that's where you pick most of the time anyway. So it's like having 2 picks back to back.
Now, I agree with you because, quite frankly, again, we still don't know what Jimmy Garoppolo is.
Consider he got hurt.
Yeah. He only played, 4 games while Brady was hurt or suspended? And then on top of it, again, we don't really know what he is right now. And listen, for a 2nd-round pick, it's kind of a win-win for both teams, I think. Because, look, it's a 2nd-round pick for the Niners, but at the same time, you could wind up getting a pretty solid quarterback.
You could. I will say that it doesn't necessarily make it any better for me that Kyle Shanahan's his coach. On to, you want to do a little NBA, and then we'll do a little baseball, and then we'll do a little polar bipolar?
Jump to a little NBA. Knicks. Well, I'll let you take the Knicks on this one because
they're losing right now. So
but I'm saying that
funny to be saying this right now, but look,
Porzingis keys to the city.
Down by 4 with 7 minutes left in the 4th.
This is where Porzingis drops 40. You know that.
The Knicks are much. I don't even know what to say about the Knicks because nobody really no one knew what they were going to be because nobody knew what Ntilikina was. Nobody knew it was all the guys how they were going to all meld together.
We still don't know what he is.
No, we don't. No. That's what I'm saying. It's like we still don't know.
The Knicks are on a nice little streak. I mean, listen, Porzingis has been exactly what they're hoping right now.
Well, of course, and it's all going to ride on one thing, right? So Ntilikina is going to have good games, he's going to have bad games, he's going to have up and down games where like he's both, and it's just not going to be great, and it's not going to be good all the time. The one thing you like about Ntilikina is that in every game he's played, he's had a really good, he's had at least a good to pretty good defensive game, and that's something that doesn't go away. So whether he's scoring or not, he's only had 10 points once. I'm sorry, if I need Frank Ntilikina to score 20 points a game, we're not winning anyway, so it doesn't matter to me. I don't want my point guard scoring 20 points a game.
But I will say right now, one guy I do like for the Knicks, Enes Kanter.
Oh,
Played really well.
It's,
a lot of double-doubles. I mean, big rebound guy.
And he allows KP to stay away from underneath the basket where he gets bumped and jabbed and hit and tired over the season a lot by taking all those hits down there. He allows Porzingis to roam around. And because Porzingis is so good off the dribble, because he's so good with his outside shot, because he's so good as a 7-3 guy, you can actually play two big men against regular teams because the mismatch isn't going to be the other team. Porzingis is the mismatch at 4.
Yeah.
And so if you continue to do that, you can continue getting away with what most NBA teams don't do anymore, and that's play 2 7-footers. They just don't do it.
Right.
And Kanter will bang down below. O'Quinn comes in and bangs for him. And the thing about the Knicks that you've liked so far is this, and then we're going to get to Major League Baseball and then polar bipolar, is this. You have a lot, like, your dirty work guys are playing really well. Courtney Lee is playing really well. Kyle O'Quinn is playing really well. Enes Kanter is playing really well. Your dirty work guys are playing well. So that Porzingis is getting 7 rebounds a game, where he doesn't need to get 10 to 12. He needs to get 7. And they're the easy ones, like the high bounce off the back of the iron and he jumps up and catches it. Where he can just allow to run down the court, post up, turn, and he's so much taller than everybody else that he just shoots over guys. Almost everybody's a mismatch. So if Porzingis stays healthy, the Knicks they're not going to be great. If they win 35 games this year, I will be shocked, to be honest with you, from where they started in the beginning. But right now, they're just fun to watch, right? Because they're playing an NBA.
And Knicks fans have not had a lot to cheer about.
Well, no, but the other thing, too, is, guys, it's fun to watch an actual offense, isn't it? It's really fun.
Well, remember, according to Fox Sports 1, the last good thing to happen to the Knicks in 25 years is the movie Eddie with Whoopi Goldberg.
Yes, which was also a terrible movie. On to baseball real quick.
Matt's going to segue, obviously, you wanted to talk about the managers in the World Series.
Well, yeah, I just want to say this real quick about the World Series. We're not going to talk about because it's been broken down to death, but I want to say this. Both managers had no right. Well, A.J. Hinch was better, but Dave Roberts, the fact that they got to Game 7 was amazing. It was almost like how the Cubs won in spite of Joe Madden last year. It was just bad managing, scared managing, and then using the numbers to back up your scaredness, okay? The other thing I don't understand is you're scared the entire series. You pulled pitchers. You pulled Wood after giving up 1 hit in 5 innings. You just pulled him. Just even like 70 pitches or something like that. You pull him, but you don't pull Darvish after the first inning where he gives up 2 runs, and then you let him stay out there to give up 3 runs. Are you insane? You have Kershaw waiting. Some people wanted to start Kershaw. I would have started Wood. I don't want to start Kershaw. If I only know I have him for 3 or 4 innings, I think that gives the other team an advantage because it allows them to.
They'll exhaust him. They'll wipe him out after a few pitches.
So I would have started Wood, gone to hope Wood gives you 4 or 5, then go to But
the one thing about
just managing scared all postseason, all the managers.
But here's the one thing.
Scared.
Here's the one thing about Kershaw too, which would not have been a good idea for Game 7 starting, is the Astros don't strike out a lot of times. So they're the type of team that they hit everything. So they'll work counts on Kershaw quickly and get him out after 2 innings.
Right.
Because his arm just won't be able to take it anymore. I don't know if Darvish or Wood, or I'm not going to even get into that whole thing, but in a big spot, Darvish really killed himself.
Spit the bit. I mean, it's brutal.
And the thing is, he cost,
that's 2 games.
I don't know if he cost himself money on the market, because I think some team will definitely give him money. But this was bad. Because when you got him, not for this exact reason, but you got him to basically solidify a rotation, and he didn't do it, especially obviously in the World Series.
Yeah, my only thing is I agree with you to a certain extent, but you also, in a game that Kershaw was pitching at a 4-0 league, and he coughed it up twice.
Yeah.
He had a 4-0 and a 3-run lead, and he coughed it up.
And that was the thing
twice.
about Kershaw, because everybody wanted to kind of forget what he used to be when he used to be a very, not a very good pitcher in the postseason. And he had those solid games with the Nationals and all that. And then he went right back to where he was, especially that 4-0 game.
Yeah.
And that killed him.
Yeah.
I mean, that pretty much killed him. And that, again, you can't waste a Kershaw start. You cannot waste a Kershaw start, especially in the World Series.
And they wasted one, but that was him. I'm sorry, that's not I'll give you if the offense wastes a Kershaw start, but he wasted his own start. He got a 4-run lead and then a 7-4 lead, and he gave him back both.
Yeah.
Real quick, the Yankees, nobody knows who their manager's going to be. If you've heard anything, don't believe it. Okay, nobody knows because I don't think Brian Cashman knows.
Or if you've heard anything, let us know because
Yeah.
nobody really in New York.
But-
This has become a very tight-lipped secret right now.
But that's because I don't think Brian Cashman knows who he wants. I honestly don't think that because I don't think he's had a chance to interview everybody. I'm worried about this. This scares the living whatever out of me. It scares me a lot because you had a manager who got a ton out of these teams for the last couple of years. I'm sorry, if Joe Girardi's not the manager of the last 3 years, they're not over 500 every game. They're just not. And so over 500 every year,
He's not even in the running this year for Manager of the Year.
Which is
ridiculous.
Insane.
And I hate the Yankees.
And it's so typical hatred of the Yankees.
The thing is, I hate the Yankees, and even I'm shocked that he's not even being considered for Manager of the Year.
Well, but also think about it, like the Terry Francona being put as or nominated as Manager of the Year. How is that not Joe Torre in the 90s with the your team was picked to go to the World Series this year, and you didn't go. Now because you won your division, you're going to be Manager of the Year? Come on.
Now, question.
Yeah.
If Girardi was in the running against Molitor, who do you give it to?
You got to give it to Molitor.
You give it to Molitor.
Yeah, because
he had nothing.
Well, no, but that's my point. So the Yankees went out at the trade deadline and acquired pieces. The Twins went out and got rid of pieces.
No,
and
hold on. The Twins acquired pieces, and then they traded one to the Yankees when they thought they were going to be out of it. Because that's when they got Jaime Garcia. Because they had gotten Jaime Garcia for the sole purpose of making a run, and then they lost like 5 or 6 in a row, and then they shipped Jaime Garcia to the Yankees right after.
So, yes. So, to me, Paul Molitor should be the Manager of the Year. It should not even be a question. I think that Altuve should be the MVP. Judge obviously should be the Rookie of the Year. I mean, I don't even think that's an issue for anybody. I would give the Cy Young to Kluber. More people will say that Sale was more consistent over the year, but I'm sorry. Sale, like the Yankees almost caught the Red Sox, and part of the reason was because Chris Sale was brutal in the last couple weeks to month of the season, just bad. So if they go Kluber, Molitor, Judge Rookie of the Year, Altuve MVP.
Okay. Now Benintendi.
Man, if Benintendi wins that, I'm sorry. Like,
it's too easy.
Let's be fair though, right? Like, cause would you be shocked
yeah, I would be, just because of Judge.
Right, but Benintendi's such a great. Everyone talks about how Benintendi's a great hitter. Do you know he had a worse average than Aaron Judge this year? Like, I'm sorry.
Here's the thing about Judge. What makes him kind of stand out is not the fact of the 52 home runs. It's the fact that he draws a lot of walks for a power hitter. I mean, that's a huge thing. What a lot of people don't.
This year, 115.
That's a stat that goes overlooked, especially with power hitters.
Right.
So in that sense, I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And in that sense, that's definitely.
And do you know that he's the only player in history to strike out 200 times and hit over 280?
I mean, again.
Like, that's an insane stat. If you think about
it's really kind of like
out 200 and whatever times.
It's a no-brainer at this point to give Judge. And I agree with you on Molitor because the thing is, Molitor had nothing.
He has to be guys, if you give it to Terry Francona, you honestly don't know what you're doing. It's like giving Joe Madden it last year when it should have been Terry Collins. Right? I mean, Joe Madden had a team that was great. He had a great team. He didn't have to do anything. Managing now listen. Managers are useless at this point. We could manage a baseball team today.
I definitely could.
Right? I mean, the players would like us. We're likable guys.
I don't know about you.
Right? No, I'm kind of a jerk. But that's besides the point. What I'm telling you is that managers don't matter anymore, except for there's about 5 that you could probably say do. So when we kill people next baseball season, we on this show will not be killing the manager of most teams. We will be killing the general manager of most teams because that's the guy who's pulling the strings.
They're the guys that build it. We got about 2 minutes before Polar or Bipolar finishes the show, but let's just give you a heads up. We are the Polar Opposites. You can check out our show on polaropposites.podbean.com, iTunes, Spreaker.com, TuneIn Radio. We have past podcasts on there as well, and you could follow us on Twitter at PolarOpposites1. Our next show on Strong Island TV will be on Tuesday, November 21st. So hopefully you guys check us out, 9 to 10, same slot. And
tell your friends,
share, like us, everything.
Do all the things you do with the buttons, likes and shares and likes.
Because that's what we need, and that's what
and
keeps us
now
going.
We got about 2 minutes of sadness before we get to Polar Bipolar. Roy Halladay passed away today, died in a plane crash in the Gulf of Mexico.
He was pilot's license too.
He was the he was the only person in the plane. So I mean, hate to use the word lucky, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
listen, it's a sad story any way you look at it. And the thing was, he was
Brutal.
such a great pitcher, not only for the Blue Jays, but when he went to the Phillies. But the one thing I'll always remember with Roy Halladay is he is one of the very few pitchers that pitched as good as he did with a torn UCL.
Yeah.
He didn't need to have Tommy John, even though it was you kind of had that almost like the Tanaka fear.
Yep.
But he basically pitched through it his entire career, and he was pretty much lights out his entire career.
Yeah.
And he will be sorely missed. That was definitely a shocker to find that out right before the show.
Yeah, and the thing is if you look at Roy Halladay's numbers, I don't know if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I'm trying to take the fact that he died today out of that.
So you think it's posthumously that he's going to be in the Hall of Fame?
No, he will get into the Hall of Fame. He absolutely is a Hall of Famer, but I think he has 203 wins for his career. I'm sorry. If Mike Mussina had 280 and like Jimmy Cott and some of these other guys that have 280 and Mike Mussina's 100 games over 500, I can't give it to him. I can't put him in his first ballot. Roy Halladay will be in the Hall of Fame. He just might not be there on day one. That's all.
All right, it's time to finish up our show, our first ever show on Strong Island TV with our segment called Polar Bipolar. So here we go. As we said before, Polar Bipolar rounds out our show for this week. It's 10 topics. Polar, you agree. Bipolar, you disagree. And we've done this enough times on the podcast, I can guarantee that Maddie will forget if polar means agree and bipolar means disagree.
At least once.
But Maddie, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
I'm always ready.
So he caught me out of left field.
Ho!
All right, here we go, Maddie. Number one, your team, the Giants. Polar or bipolar? They have officially quit on Ben McAdoo.
Polar down the middle, though, because I don't think everyone's quit, because I think there's a lot of young guys on the team that really need to sort of not quit, right?
Do you want to just call it equator?
Yeah, we'll call it the polar bipolar equator right on the line there. Because I think there's tons of guys who haven't quit yet. They just haven't. So I think some of the big guys have. I think some of the cornerbacks have. I think the cornerbacks did a little bit of what we call in the Union game, like a slowdown in the game on Sunday. I don't think they played as well as they could have. So yeah, I think he's lost. The Giants need to get rid of these guys. McAdoo gone. Everybody gone. Reese gone. Everybody needs to be gone. And that's all I have to say.
All right.
Yeah. Number two, the Suns receive fair value in the Eric Bledsoe trade with the Bucks.
I'm going to say bipolar. Mainly the reason is because Monroe is a good center, but now you have Monroe and Tyson Chandler, unless you plan to trade Tyson Chandler. The problem I have with it are the picks, because I'm sick of seeing teams getting protected picks. The Suns need guys in the lottery, or they need guys to, if the Bucks are going to be a bad team. Now, we know the Bucks are probably not going to be a bad team. They're going to be a playoff team this year, especially now that they got Bledsoe. But getting just like a protected first-round pick just bothers me, because you got to get more than that, because if the Bucks are a bad team, you need to really reap the reward of getting that lottery pick, and then they get multiple second-round picks for guys that are going to be foreign players probably stashed away for 2 or 3 years before they finally come back into the league. Because that's what the second round is, and you know I'm right.
Oh, absolutely.
It's guys from Turkey, Lithuania, Latvia, the Congo.
We'll see them in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, name the country, and they just get stashed for 3 or 4 years before they finally come in, and they're just pretty much useless at this point. So no, I don't think they did, but at the same time, Bledsoe was so unhappy there, I guess they had to take the first trade that came their way. Maddie, number 3, polar or bipolar? The Angels overpaid for Justin Upton.
I'm going to say bipolar, and because he opted in, didn't he? They didn't pick it up. It was his option that he chose, and he chose to opt in.
But they gave him a new contract. He signed a 5-year deal.
Yeah. And I don't think it's a bad deal, and here's why. I think if he put down, again, if you're getting the Justin Upton before he came to the Angels, well then yeah, it's a terrible deal. But if you're getting the Justin Upton the Angels got, then it's actually a good deal. If you pair him with Trout and Pujols in the last couple years, that's a deadly middle of the order right there. I think it's a good deal for them. They needed to do it. The problem with the Angels is they throw good money after bad all the time, and they never spend it on the one thing that they need more than anything, and that's starting pitching. The Angels will never be good until they get starting pitching.
And you got to make Mike Trout happy, and that's probably a good way to go at this point.
Yeah, I mean, go
Get a
trade
rotation,
for someone.
build a rotation.
Go trade. You got guys. Go trade for somebody. Do something, because what you're doing now by just having a bunch of hitters isn't working. It's very rare that a team. And look, you can say that about the Astros. They run on offense, but their pitching was very good in a lot of those games. Number 4, the Mets should trade for Marlins second baseman. I did steroids Gordon.
I say Polar. And the reason why I say Polar is, number 1, he's a table setter, and he can steal bases, and you have a second baseman, an everyday second baseman, which is what the Mets need. That's one of the things that they need this year. The Marlins are trying to slash payroll at this point. They're trying to get rid of pretty much everybody.
Right.
You know, Stanton, name it. Yelich, Ozuna, Gordon is another guy because he's on a big contract.
Jeter fire sale.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they want to do. They're trying to rebuild the entire team yet again. So I would take D. Gordon. Now, look, I'm not really up to date on what the Mets farm system is outside of Rosario being up with the team and Dominic Smith up with the team. So I don't really know what they'd want. But at this point, I mean, I have to consider a strong trade for D. Gordon because I think he would be that good leading off for the Mets, stealing bases and helping guys, you know, with Cespedes, Conforto you hope comes back, healthy and everything, and just moving on. So yeah, absolutely, I would say definitely trade for D. Gordon. Number 5, Matty, polar or bipolar? The Dodgers already being labeled the favorites to win the World Series in 2018 is ridiculous.
It's so polar. It's so polar. How can you do that? They just lost. Are you telling me that the Houston Astros aren't going to be back there? That's what you're saying? You're saying that the Dodgers, who crapped the bed, they had Game 7 in their own house and lost. They're going to come back and it's just going to be, you know, Kershaw's yet another year older. His back is only getting worse. You might not have Darvish the second half of the season. Who knows if you're going to get the same production out of guys like Cody Bellinger. Another year for Justin Turner. I mean, that guy's like, what, 33, something like that at this point?
Yeah.
So it is absolutely, without a doubt, polarly ludicrous that this team is the favorite to go to the World Series. Everybody knows the Yankees should be the favorite to win the World
start
Series.
that again. Go ahead.
What is it? Number 6, good backups will become more available than ever thanks to injuries to Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson.
This is polar, but I don't really know what a good backup quarterback is.
No such thing anymore.
Okay, there is no such thing. You're exactly right, because the thing is teams can't invest it, just like we talked about before. So my guess is if they're not going to spend the kind of money on a good backup quarterback, then they will probably draft a quarterback high and just kind of keep him, you know, groom him to eventually take over if a Rodgers gets hurt, or if a Brady gets hurt, or if a Breeze and everything. It's the only thing that makes sense at this point, and it won't cost you nearly as much as it would be. Because the way I'm looking at it right now is that backup quarterbacks are becoming as valuable as relief pitchers in Major League Baseball. Okay, they're going to get the big contract soon because...
And just as inconsistent.
Yeah,
sorry.
Because the thing is that teams need it. Right now, the Houston Texans are probably sweating themselves because Watson's out and Savage stinks. So what else are they going to do? So they're not going to go after Colin Kaepernick. So what is the next course of action? There's nobody else out there. When you lose your starting quarterback, especially a franchise quarterback, it's not only bad, it really just kind of sets your team in a tailspin to the point where you're going to have to spend the big money to get a quality backup. But again, what is a quality backup in the league? We have no idea. We always automatically equate it to Matt Moore. Okay, like we automatically equate Matt Moore as the best backup in the NFL, but that's not really saying a lot. So in that sense, it's going to be a case of where teams are going to start drafting quarterbacks high and grooming them to take over in the future.
His first start, they lost 40-0.
Exactly.
So whatever the hell it was.
Number 7, Matty, this is an interesting one. Polar or bipolar? Amari Cooper is a draft bust.
I'm going to say bipolar on this, and mostly because it's still too early to call, I think. I think he's been good enough to where you can't necessarily say he's a bust, but he could be going towards bust level, if that makes sense.
He's not a difference maker, man.
Well, no. Look, whether or not he's definitely not as good as advertised, right? So like we know that, but to me, a draft bust means that you are down in the doldrums, right? I mean, like you are like Ryan Leaf is a bust. And so I can't put him there yet because he's been productive, but he's definitely not worth the pick where he went. He's definitely not worth that. Number 8, the Jets defense dancing on the field during a timeout in Thursday's win was disrespectful to the Buffalo Bills.
As a Jets fan and as a fan in general, I'm going to say bipolar. And the reason why I say bipolar is because nobody seemed to mind when Marshawn Lynch was dancing when the Raiders were beating the Jets.
The Jets fans minded.
Not me.
No, but most Jets fans did.
Actually, that's not entirely true. That's not entirely true. That's not entirely true. No way. Okay, there are Jet fans who probably were pissed about it, and I'm not saying they're not. But at the same time, I had no problem with it whatsoever.
you have no
It is
problem
what
with
it
it,
is,
what it
and I'm sure there are plenty of fans that didn't have a problem with it. The thing is that if we're going to say that this is disrespectful, then let's talk about the ridiculous touchdown celebrations of guys playing hide and seek in the end zone.
That take 30
right?
minutes.
That take 30 minutes and they don't even get a flag. Or guys bench pressing or pretending to bench press like, I forgot who did that.
Or did you see the one with the Chiefs where they threw the ball at the guy and then he chased after him like
Yeah,
they were gonna start a brawl?
It's absolutely,
Brutal.
honestly, it's not disrespectful. I think it was just a way for them to just kind of hype the crowd up a little bit. I didn't have a problem with it. And I wouldn't have had a problem if the Buffalo Bills did it because, whatever, this is supposed to be fun, right, at the end of the day? And I mean, if you're going to be lenient on these celebrations, then you got to be lenient on this too.
I agree.
Number 9, Maddie, one close to your heart. Polar or bipolar, you couldn't be more excited for the return of the McRib sandwich at McDonald's.
Oh, that is as bipolar as it gets. Ribs should have bones, okay? Ribs should have bones. If you're eating a boneless rib sandwich, it's not a rib sandwich. It's a meat sandwich. Ribs should have bones. And that is all I have to say about that. Number 10, Andrew McCutcheon will not be a member of the Pirates in 2018.
I'm going to say Polar. They just gave him his option. I think it's like at $14 million, but then he's a free agent after this year. So my guess is the Pirates will trade him now in the offseason, maybe at the winter meetings, because they're not going to want to give him a big contract, especially if he does really well this year.
Right.
They don't want to be put in that corner. The fact is he wasn't good last year, and he's kind of tapered off the past couple of years. He hasn't really been that impact player he once was for Pittsburgh.
Right.
And it might be time for them to cut the apron strings. But I would definitely say at this point it's Polar for me because it's time to move on. And in that sense, you just have to. And I think McCutcheon, this is the time to trade him because $14 million could be a bargain for other teams. And for the Pirates, it might be time for them to just kind of start over and rebuild a little bit. So I say 100% Polar.
Let me just, he will be excellent on a good team where he
Sure.
doesn't have to be the guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
And with that, Polar Bipolar is officially over. And our inaugural show on Strong Island TV is over. And we'd like to thank everybody for listening as always. Check us out at strongisland.tv. Our podcast can be found at polaropposites.podbean.com, iTunes, Spreaker.com, and TuneIn Radio. And you can follow us on Twitter at PolarOpposites1. We will have our podcast next Tuesday, the 14th, on those regular on Podbean and iTunes and everything. And we are back on Strong Island TV 2 weeks from today. Sorry about that. On the 21st of November. So everybody, thank you for listening. Share this page. Like us on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. We really could use the support, and we thank you guys for watching, listening, and everything. Enjoy the week. Enjoy the games. Enjoy life. And we will talk again on Strong Island TV in 2 weeks. And then don't forget to check out our podcast at podbean.com, iTunes, Spreaker.com, and TuneIn Radio.
Bye.